Good afternoon. Thank you for coming to hear about our undergraduate research opportunities at K-State today. If you are up above and you can hear me and want to learn more about undergraduate research, pop on down here and stay as long as you wish and go on your way. Kansas State University is offering more undergraduate research opportunities than we've ever had before. And we have a new office to help us do that. It's called the Office of Undergraduate Research and Creative Inquiry. And we would like to have a panel discussion today that will tell you a little bit about what's happening here at K-State. We will tell you a little bit about who gets involved in undergraduate research and why would somebody want to be involved in undergraduate research? And finally, once you're convinced that you too should be involved in undergraduate research, how do you get involved? And that's a very important part of it because we have some new opportunities this year. For the first time ever, we have, through the Office of Undergraduate Research and Creative Inquiry, some grants, some research grants that will have a November deadline so that you can conduct a research project in the spring semester. They pay $1,000. So if you're interested in doing undergraduate research and are not connected yet, you may want to come up and make sure you get an application so that you can apply. We also have some travel grants so that if you are doing research and you have an opportunity to present your work at a conference somewhere around the country, we have research travel grants, again due in November for spring. So with that, I will turn it over to our panel. If we start here on the end, we have Dr. Krister Aakeroy from the Department of Chemistry. We have next to him is Cipriana Sapien, who is an accounting major here at K-State. She is an undergraduate researcher. Dr. Tanya Gonzalez is from the English department, and she also works with the Developing Scholars Program. Dr. Don Saucier is from the Department of Psychology. And next to him is Navanté Peacock, who works in Dr. Saucier's lab. And so they're going to share with you some of their thoughts about getting involved in undergraduate research. We encourage you to not be shy to raise your hand or stand up or holler, whatever, to get attention and ask questions as they occur to you. So very informal. Feel free to assert yourself and ask questions. With that, who would like to open up the discussion?
Tanya's in the middle.
Alrighty then. Welcome to the panel on undergraduate research. We're all really excited to be here. I'm going to scoot in a little bit so you can hear me better. But undergraduate research is a really important part of the university experience for students and for faculty. And you may be wondering, well, what is undergraduate research? So I'm going to answer that question for you. Undergraduate research is an opportunity to learn, obviously, but it's also an opportunity to engage in the development of new knowledge and to develop your ability to think creatively and to engage in discovery. So I think that one of the things that people don't think about when they start their university life is that you can really participate in some of the same activities that your professors and other researchers across campus are doing. You can engage with them in ways that contributes to their overall research project, but also that gives you that that view into the world of research and the world of knowledge production. And so, typically that can take many forms. And so we often think creatively about undergraduate research and what that means. For folks in the humanities, since I'm kind of a representative of the humanities here, it can take the form of doing academic internships with your professors to engage with their projects with academic journals. You can be an assistant editor. You can do kind of independent research. You can publish your research from classrooms, or if you have a mentor, a research mentor, you can publish them at lots of different undergraduate and sometimes national journals, and become part of that sort of learning community in that way. You can submit work for awards. The library has a new undergraduate journal called Crossroads, and it also has the Kermser Award, which is brand new, and you can definitely engage and connect and get your work published and out there in those forms. And also just kind of compete for national awards depending on what your department has and can offer you. So there's lots of different ways, including getting connected to the official kind of K-State undergraduate research opportunities that are university-wide and department-specific. So why do undergraduate research? Well, statistics show it's one of those high-impact learning things that you can do as an undergraduate. All of our students benefit from undergraduate research. Our underrepresented students benefit exponentially from undergraduate research experiences. And like I said, it really kind of connects you into that sort of aha moments that you get when you sort of see what your professors and what other intellectuals are doing for their work. I would also want to say that for faculty, the benefits are amazing as well. Having an undergraduate researcher revitalizes you in your work in some ways, because you get to engage with them, teach them what you're doing, but also to sort of engage with them on a level that's not classroom-based necessarily, right? It's one-on-one mentoring and researching. And some of those questions that your students ask, they can really be profound in some ways, and help you to communicate your research in better ways. So yeah, I'm just gonna let other people talk, but that's my 2 cents on undergraduate research.
One of the things that I'll add to what Tanya said is that undergraduate research is a place to stand out. If you walk around campus, you're probably aware there's a lot of us on campus. I think the last number I saw was we were just under 25,000 undergraduate students here. And not all of them are in undergraduate research labs, and probably logistically we can't make that happen. But we can deal with a lot of them in those labs. What you do is you move into a more intimate setting in which you develop professional skills. And those skills are currency. Whether or not you're going to graduate school or you want to go to medical school or law school or any of those kind of things, you learn how to organize, you learn how to work in a team, you learn how to think critically, you learn how to work long hours and manage your time. You get better at oral presentation, you get better at written communication. And you do this under the mentorship of someone who knows how to do that pretty well. And the faculty and graduate students have developed those skills over their experiences with you. So I think it's a unique opportunity to get some attention that you might otherwise miss out on. And when I go to my general psychology class and I stand in front of 182 students in there, and I don't know their names, and I can kind of recognize their faces, and then I walk into a research team meeting with 3 or 4 undergraduates like Navanté, and I know a lot about them, and I know a lot about their skills, and I can see them grow and adapt to becoming more professional and better critical thinkers and all of those kind of things. This is an opportunity that you can take advantage of. It's an opportunity that we're happy to provide, and I wish that more people did it.
Yeah, I think I can easily second the comments from both Tanya and Don. To me, some of the really, really important parts of doing undergraduate research is that you're doing research that potentially can really make a difference, regardless of what kind of topic you're working in, regardless of what kind of area you're working in. you, even as a young, little, unformed, fresh undergraduate student, can really make a huge difference in a way that most people never have the opportunity to do. And I think since we're all at an educational establishment like K-State, where research is important, it makes a huge contribution to the community and beyond the community and across the world, as an undergraduate, to have a chance to play a role in that, to me, I think that's an absolutely priceless opportunity. And I think most of you undergraduates, you recognize textbooks. You have a textbook, you have 14 chapters, you have to learn it, you have exams. Don't think for a second that that textbook represents the be-all and end-all of knowledge in that field. 50 years ago, that textbook looked totally different. And the advances that were made from 50 years ago to now were made, to some extent, to a large extent in some areas, by research carried out by undergraduates. So you can learn things that no one else knows about. You can learn things that no one else has seen before. You might even teach your professor a couple of things or two, because, believe it or not, we only know a fraction of what we should know and what we can know, because the world is such a big place and there are so many opportunities, and undergraduates sometimes have a slightly different way of thinking about problems because they haven't been trained, which means they're asking occasionally silly questions, but those silly questions can lead to a new experiment, to a new survey, to a new way of analyzing data. And I always really like the fact that you have a combination of graduate students and undergraduate students in the lab, because the younger kids, they have a different enthusiasm and they're a little bit more fearless as well. They don't even know what they don't know, which is really helpful at times, because they do give you a spark that otherwise may not be there. Frankly, I think it's a waste of an opportunity not to do some research as an undergraduate. I think this could be the one time in your lives when you can go into a lab or go into a research team and do stuff that no one else has ever done before. And it really can make a difference. And I mean, I can't think of any other area where you can do that as a 19, 20, 21, 22-year-old person. So I think you should definitely do it.
I guess I'll talk about why I got interested in undergraduate research. I wanted to research in psychology because I knew it was going to help me for my career, because I was going to have to research for my career. And I thought it was going to better me for my future, and it has in many ways. Not only will it look good, but when you have a mentor like Don here, he really pushes you to your limits. And having that person to be there to make you push yourself and do better and communicate better, a bunch of different skills that he's given me, it's really nice to have, and I wouldn't have got it otherwise. Along with, I'm in Developing Scholars program, so it's a 3-year program where you research. You actually get paid for that as well, and even though it's not about the money's really nice to have, especially as a college student. But it really has benefited me in multiple ways, and I'm really glad that I've chose to do this.
Okay, I'll give my experience as an undergraduate research. I'm only a sophomore, so it's my second year into this. But can you guys hear me first off? Okay, I feel like I'm really far away, but I don't want to keep scooting forward. Okay. So I think anyone and everyone should get interested into it. There's endless benefits. You're going to hear us say that all the time, but there really is. It's the fact that as a freshman, I got a chance. I'm accounting and finance, and so I got a chance to be with a finance mentor, and I got to learn about how to run regressions and how to run like the log of 2-year returns, and I didn't even know what that meant. Like, I came in and I just didn't know I was like, I don't know anything about finance. I don't know how I'm going to do this. Like, I'm going to try, but it's the fact that you have a mentor here to teach you and to help you like the steps along the way. And so as I did it, I found out more that like in my words, I guess you could say, I can actually hang with like the people who are graduates and who do this. Like, it's an experience to be able to do it as a freshman or as a sophomore. Not many people get that experience and are able to say, you know what, I've done this much in a lab and I've been able to apply to this conference or been able to publish this. Like, I guess it's the fact of like revitalizing your mentor, but also it's like the learning never stops. And I guess that's something I'm very challenged, and it's a challenge for me to do it. But I love seeing how far I can push myself, and then knowing that if I don't know what to do, that there's someone that can be like, okay, just step back and look at it this way, or learn this new perspective. And so there's been endless amounts of knowledge that I've learned, and I'm excited to keep continuing. I'm not even done. Like, I didn't have enough time in that year, and I just wanted to keep going. I did a little bit over the summer just to do it because I wanted to keep going, but I still have tons to do this year, and then I'm looking at hopefully applying for a conference. So applying for a conference as a sophomore is kind of an accomplishment too. So it's just anyone, everyone, if you have a will and you want to learn more and it goes in with your field, or you just have a curiosity about something, I think you should get into it because, I mean, there's nothing that's going to happen. You're just going to keep learning more about what you truly love to do. So
I think one of the other things that I'll mention up here, and I know this is definitely true of me, I imagine it probably would be true for Tanya and Krista as well, is that I was an undergraduate researcher. It was my involvement in an undergraduate research lab in college that allowed me to think, you know, maybe I do want to be a social psychologist. And I remember at one moment kind of moving to the person who led my team and saying, how do I get to do what you do? How do I get to come in and ask these questions and explore these kind of things and then work with students in that kind of capacity? And it was really that experience for me that was kind of shaping of me of what that field meant, what that professional experience meant. But then when I decided I wanted to do that, it looked good on my applications. So it was both formative for me, but it also allowed me to go forward with that and get into graduate school. And then when I got to graduate school, I was better prepared for graduate school than a lot of my peers in that first year class. So I think that this kind of put the spark in me, and that spark never went out. And I really like seeing that spark get ignited in others.
I would agree. I think that to kind of go along what Don said, I think that there's an element of being connected to someone's passion, right, that really makes you see what it is to work in something that you care so deeply about that you want to keep working over the summer unpaid to continue doing that. And once you get that sort of feeling, it's not that undergraduate research automatically is a path to graduate school in your field. In fact, connecting to that feeling of like, I'm passionate about what I'm doing, and I know how to research, and I know how to obtain the skills, and I know how to learn on a one-on-one situation or in a smaller kind of lab setting, that transfers to the rest of your life. You become passionate about learning, but you also become passionate, able to sort of see what makes you tick and what kinds of jobs or what kind of life you want to pursue. And I think that, so I think undergraduate research becomes a really important way to engage with that part of yourself, and also to sort of really situate yourself into something that you really care about. Because there's nothing worse, right? We've all had the jobs where we don't care about being there. We want all of our students and we want all of us to have that kind of, passionate life work that you really care about and what you really love. And I think undergraduate research we don't talk about it as that sort of step towards that, but I think it really is, because I really think that if you're excited about something, if you see somebody else with that energy and passion, that you really want that for yourself, whether it's going to grad school and becoming a scholar and researcher in the academy or in the other professions, or whether it's taking another path. But I think you can still apply that same energy and passion.
Yeah, something else just to add to that. I know that many undergraduates try to make themselves stand out by doing all sorts of extracurricular activities, but I think to have a research component on your resume is seriously by far and away the best thing you can do to make yourself be competitive and stand out. And I know that we're in the middle of a landlocked state, in the middle of a big continent, but doing research can also give you a ticket to a lot of different places that you never even considered before. The students that come out of Kansas State University have a really good reputation across the board. having had a research experience, if you do well, you have presented your work at conferences, you may have some scientific publications under your name, not only will you be able to get into graduate school, you may also have a choice of where you go, which means that you can go to the West Coast if you want to, you can go to the East Coast if you want to, you can go to Europe if you want to. So I looked at some of the students that I had in my group over the last few years, and I've had students, sorry, I think of them as kids. So I've had students go to Berkeley on a fully paid scholarship to do a PhD in chemistry. They've gone to Yale, they've gone to Northwestern, they've gone to Arizona. One of my students have just started a PhD in Cambridge, and that's the real Cambridge, the old Cambridge in England, not the other Cambridge. And these are opportunities that you might not think that you would ever get to once you start your education, but it really, really gives you a different edge. And as Don said, it makes you stand out in a different way that you otherwise would not do. And if you're at all interested in investing in your future, if you're at all interested in your future full stop, then this is one of the most important things that you can do to make yourself as competitive as possible, as desirable as possible, in addition to all the cool stuff and the excitement and the joy that you would get out of actually doing the work itself. So I just can't see any downside to this at all.
I'd like to note that absolutely anybody can do undergraduate research. I know a student in Developing Scholars Program who is a theater major, and she did her research over how actors' role play a part to when actors become too attached to that role and they become that role in the real life. So I just want to note that research isn't limited to sciences like a lot of people think, how I thought as well. You can do research in any field that you can think of.
On that same note, I guess, one thing that I always had a perception of was research was nothing but like science, math. But when it comes down to it, like mine, when I do my research, I do it from my dorm room. I can do it from my computer because that's where I do it. Some people have to do labs. Some people go out and they do experiments and surveys. So it just like depends on whatever you do. But I don't want you guys to think of it negatively as in it's just like you're in a lab all day if that's what you don't enjoy doing. You know what I mean? So you can do it wherever you would like. It's not just in a lab in science.
Yeah, do you guys have questions for us or about the research programs that are available at K-State? Maybe Anita can come up and answer some of those questions.
So Anita, the question is, how does your office help connect them to research opportunities? Mm-hmm. Which is an excellent question.
It is an excellent question.
How does our office help you connect with professors for research opportunities? All sorts of ways. Basically, the staff knows a lot of people on campus and knows how to make contacts in any of the colleges and departments. So basically what we do is talk to you and find out what your interests are. And then we start trying to contact professors or telling you who to contact. For our students are not just placed and plunked down in somebody's lab. You actually go and meet with a professor, have an interview, and the two of you talk and see if you have a common ground of interest and exploration, and so the two of you would decide whether it's a match or not, and that's how we proceed.
Another way you can enter into undergraduate research is through your major or your minor. So you can go to an advisor to find out if there are, for instance, departmental internships or departmental programs that you can apply to that are sort of more local in nature. And don't forget, I mean, a lot of people sort of box themselves into particular areas when you start getting into your major. But there are programs across campus, like digital humanities programs, for instance, that might be able to utilize a lot of the interdisciplinary skills that you might have. So just kind of keeping an awareness and asking your advisors and your directors of undergraduate studies in your departments for some of those opportunities is probably like a two-pronged or three-pronged or five-pronged approach to sort of getting undergraduate research under your belt while you're here. So be creative, think outside the box in terms of what kind of research opportunities you want. And for instance, I had a developing scholar who was working in the English department with me on my project, but she was American Ethnic Studies, Women's Studies major with a Leadership Studies minor and taking Chinese. And so, but she was really interested in the topic of my work and worked with me for 3 years. So it didn't have to be sort of situated in your major always. So.
I'll describe the model that psychological sciences uses for this, and I know a lot of other departments on campus use the same model. And that's we actually provide elective credit for being in research labs. Mm-hmm. So in the Department of Psychological Sciences, typically what happens is an undergraduate goes online and looks at all the research profiles of faculty. One of the things about us is we're usually not shy about our accomplishments. So what'll happen is you can look me up on the Department of Psychology's webpage, you'll see a wonderful picture of me, they didn't tell me to smile, it's not my fault, and then they list out the stuff that I'm interested in, some publications and things like that. On there it'll say, hey, I work with students, if you're interested, contact me for an interview. And what the student might do is contact me and say, hey, I was wondering about joining your lab. Can we set up a time to talk? We go through this interview process that Dr. Cortez was talking about. And then what would happen is you could sign up for credit hours in Psychology 599, which is a 500-level psychology elective course. This is a course that you can take repeated semesters, and basically we have now a structured way that we can give you credit for the experiences that you're getting. So it really does become win-win. And what really helps me is when a student says, I'm interested in what you do on this. So it's not just the experience you want, but there's a connection, there's an overlap in our interests that we can then pursue together.
Right. And most departments have a function like that, so you can really tap into that.
Yeah, I think actually the easiest way is just to go to talk to someone that you might be interested in working with. If you look up their research profile on, even if it's with a smile or without a smile, there is usually a research profile for every department. Just come and see us. We are more than happy to have undergraduates come and want to work for us, or with us, rather.
I might interject at this point as well that there are a number of established programs on campus, such as the Developing Scholars Program for underrepresented students, the McNair Scholars Program, and then there are a lot of opportunities in all of the different departments that have very established programs. So part of it is just asking people, come to the office or ask professors, ask advisors, and there's so many different ways we can point you in the right direction. So again, I would second what Tanya says. It's not about a particular path, but if you can think it or dream it, we can probably come up with a way to get there. Are there any questions, other questions?
The question was how much time is dedicated to undergraduate research, typically in whether it's in a psychology lab or in finance, et cetera. That was the question, right? Okay.
I can kind of start out. In our department, like we said, we work through this credit system. So what it is you do 3 hours of work per week per credit hour. So if you're taking 3 credits, that would be 9 hours of work per week. Typically, the way that gets divided up is depending on what tasks you're working on, what teams you're working on, you'll have some meeting time where you're meeting with the faculty member and the rest of your research team. There may be some scheduled time to collect data or enter data or those kind of things. And then there's some take-home time, some portable time. You might be doing some literature searching, some reading, some preparing presentations or those kind of things. So what happens is a structure typically to it. It's, at least the way that I work, I'm not comfortable saying, all right, here's what you got to do, come back in 6 weeks and tell me how that went. I'm much more hands-on than that. I think typically it's going to be a much more hands-on experience. I don't feel like I develop a collaborative relationship with a student unless we're actually spending some time together and talking about and discussing ideas. I also think if we go 6 weeks without a meeting, we're going to make a lot of mistakes on both sides, and then that product is not going to be as good. So I think you're going to be expecting something a little bit more intensive, a little bit more investing in terms of the time commitment. It's not going to be 24/7, but it is going to be one of your priorities. And that's one of the rules that I make for the students who work in my lab. It's not going to be your only priority. You've got other things that you're doing, but it has to be one of your priorities. Otherwise, it's not going to go very well.
That's why it's really important to either link it to academic credit, right, so that you're taking it as class credit, or doing some sort of the paid programs that are offered in our Office of Undergraduate Research and Creativity, or doing it in some sort of internship situation where an internship would probably take up to probably 10 hours. But you want to have some sort of credit component to it so that there is a structured expectation between you and your faculty mentor in terms of what those expectations are. So a good strategy in terms of setting something up is to make those expectations really clear in the beginning. Typically, you can expect a weekly meeting just to check in, no matter what discipline. So even in the humanities, right, where we aren't in a lab situation, we're still checking in, we're still kind of touching base, and then working in our own respective places, doing our own thing, and then coming back to learn from each other and from that work. And so you can expect, whether it's a 3 credit hour class, so 9 to 10 hours, depending on that. And you want to just be careful that your undergraduate research doesn't take over your ability to obtain a degree. So you want to just balance all of that with all of the other opportunities. But we can't emphasize enough. I know Sip was like, we're going to tell you this all the time, but it's just so, it's just worth it to engage in some kind of undergraduate research.
I think also, I don't know about you, but once you get involved in something that you're really, really interested in, I think you typically stop counting how many hours you've actually spent on this thing, as opposed to studying for an exam or being in a lab, or suddenly 6 hours have gone by because you want to find out what this data actually means, or how do I get this reaction to work, or how do I design this survey? And so that's a bonus because you don't have to check a box anymore. I've spent 3 hours, now I'm done. It doesn't work like that anymore. And I think the experience that a lot of students have when they get into the research environment is that time doesn't have the same meaning as it have when you have to do something. You do this because you're interested, and sometimes you actually spend a little bit more time than you should. You spend late hours, you work in your dorm room for hours and hours and hours, or you stay late in the lab because you want to. And I think that is a big difference sometimes between being in a research group, working on a research challenge, and having to study for an exam on topic A, B, or C.
I know with me personally, I spend anywhere from 6 to 10 hours a week doing my research. So it just varies depending on how much I have to do, but I at least get a minimum of 6 hours in, and I try not to do any more than 10, but if I get carried away, I just get carried away with it, so.
And I think what you'll find is if you don't have that research that you're doing, you have a lot more time than you think you do. So even though you have all these classes to go to, all the studying to do, you have plenty of time. And it's nice to fill that free time up doing something productive, keep you out of trouble.
Actually, I have a question I would like to ask, and I know that we have a number of undergraduate researchers in the audience because I asked you to be here. But we also have a couple on the panel, and I'm going to ask them. We've tried to kind of browbeat you into thinking that this is a good opportunity that you should take advantage of. But being there and being good are two different things. So I'm going to ask the people on the panel, as well as a number of undergraduates, to kind of come up to our microphone up here and tell, how do you get good at undergraduate research? What are the tips you would give people by being in labs and succeeding in those labs?
That's a great question. And you are good, so just talk about
Hold
that.
on, I'm thinking how I want to say this. Okay, so with me personally, I feel like the way that I get good with my research is when I learn how to effectively manage my time to where it's not like okay, I only have 30 minutes left and I haven't done as much as I need to. It's when it just kind of naturally becomes a habit, I guess, and therefore it's not like a burden to try to do it. So I feel like when you get good at it, it just continues to just keep building. It just gets easier and easier, and then you keep adding more steps and you keep getting more done, and then eventually you're like, what used to take me 15 minutes now only takes me like 3 seconds to do. So I guess it's just realizing that it just keeps building.
I've got good at it because Don won't let me do anything else. He definitely has his lab mates as, like, he holds us to a really high standard. He won't let us undercut, say that we're worse than what we are, even if that's what we think. So having him tell us that we're better than what we think is a good way to be good at it. Also, the time you spend with it is also another way. You can't just carelessly do your task for the week. You have to really think about it and kind of be passionate about it as well. You can't just do it aimlessly.
And I'll start pointing at people if we don't have people at the microphone. So, all right, Derek's coming up. Great.
I guess I'll face this way. Undoubtedly, the most important aspect for me was persistence. I did an application for human research subjects research with an IRB form is what that's called. I think I did 16, 17 drafts before I actually got it correctly, the first one that I ever wrote. And it's really crushing when you get it back and it's just solid red marks and solid everything. Like you just made every mistake you could possibly make, but you learn a lot through those mistakes, and the process of discovering how to do things correctly really reinforces the memories and how the procedures. So once you've figured it out, you really have it locked down and you can do it. You can operate autonomously, and that's really what the goal is with the mentor-student relationship, is to teach you how to become an autonomous researcher.
Just line up. I don't have to call on everybody.
All right. Yeah, I'd like to add on what Derek and Navanté were saying, that persistence and time management are very important. But kind of to elaborate on the time management part, you really have to manage it well, because you could come up with a question like the night before your assignment's due, and then you don't get to ask that question and you don't get a better research product. And even within the research labs, as it is an intimate setting, you still want to try to be standing out. So that helps you get your own research project that you can start working on. So you want to be very careful with the work you're doing, very creative, very analytical, and that takes time. So you don't want to rush it. You want to be very specific and have the best product you have when you give it to the professor.
Also around about the whole like time management type thing as well. Making this like your not main priority, but one of your main priorities. I know like everyone's obviously taking credit hours and everyone has a lot to get done and everything, but this is always, when I go to do my schoolwork every night, this is always the first thing that I want to get done, as what he was just saying. Like if you have any questions, you have weekly lab reports that you have to do. You can't have that the night before having to rush to get all of this done. So as long as you keep it as one of your main priorities, it's not going to build up on you. And yeah, it's a lot of work, but it ultimately is like worth it if this is what you want to do for the rest of your life.
I think what's helped me the most is definitely having high expectations. I thought I had high expectations for myself, and then I joined Don's lab and realized that there were even higher expectations for me. So it's really good to have somebody hold you accountable and kind of mentor you and tell you know you can do this if you work hard enough. And definitely just having those high expectations and working hard for those. And then it's really rewarding whenever you see your work pay off and you see yourself progressing and becoming a better researcher and becoming a better writer and getting things published. And so it's definitely a high reward, but it's also really hard work, and you have to be able to be committed to that.
And I'll point out that the first speaker, Derek, and the last speaker, Maddie, should be congratulated. They both had their first paper accepted for publication in a scientific journal. So it kind of shows what can happen with the work that they do.
And I see we have an undergraduate researcher from the theater department, which will give us another perspective.
Well, just being in DSP, like a lot of the things that people are into are like science or math, and I didn't really know if the program was for me because I am a theater major, so I'm like, I don't know anything about labs or, equations or anything like that, so can I do research? And it was just really interesting for me just to find out how I can incorporate the things that I'm passionate about and just ask questions. And the basis of research is just asking a question and exploring that. So even last year, just how my research was based on actors and how they get into characters, and what is some of the damage that can be done to that actor's personality from getting into these intense roles. So that's what I looked at. And it didn't have to be necessarily about math or science, but I still explored something that was important to me, and just that enabling me to just gain a sense of initiative and independence and being able to ask questions and work with somebody who knew a lot more than me just was a great experience for me. So I enjoyed that and the opportunities that developing scholars provides me.
Any other questions out there? Any final thoughts from the panel?
No, I think we just need to get back to the lab right now.
Yeah.
Okay, go get to work. Thank you so much for joining us today.